Thank you. We have a tremendous opportunity this morning. We're going to be talking with 5 really outstanding applicants to serve on the Florida A&M Board of Trustees. By way of procedure, we've met with the staff and come up with what we think is a reasonable approach. We will give each candidate an opportunity to make an opening statement for a couple of minutes. Then we will have what we're calling some core issues. The members of the committee have received a possible interview format. We're certainly not wed to that, but it does include 4 areas that we felt were important that we review with each applicant. We have, as all good plans go, we've had a few problems. Mr. Dent, his plane was canceled. He's doing all that he can to be here. He's on another plane now, and he thinks he will be able to be here prior to the conclusion of the meeting. And Mr. Brown is with us by telephone this morning. At the conclusion of our interviews, we will have an opportunity to discuss the various applications, and then each member of the committee will have 3 votes because there are 3 vacancies. 2 of those vacancies expire at the same time. 1 vacancy expires before that. So the top 2 vote getters will get the longest terms. And in the event we have a tie there, well, we'll figure out what to do when that time comes. Are there any questions about the procedure that we intend to follow this morning? Okay, well, let's move right into our interviews. As I've indicated, Mr. Robert Brown is on the telephone. Mr. Brown is a self-employed businessman who has made a great success out of his life. He, in looking at his application, I was amazed to see that he has 10 honorary PhDs. I don't know anyone who's ever accomplished that. He has served on numerous boards, including the University of North Carolina system. Mr. Brown, would you like to spend a couple of minutes telling us a little bit about yourself? Mr. Brown, do we still have you?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Did you hear the comments from the chair?
I heard some of it, yes.
Okay.
Well, can you hear me now, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I hear you a little better now.
Okay, I've got the mic a little closer. I briefly introduced you and went over a number of your accomplishments, which are many. Our format this morning would allow you to make a couple of minutes introducing yourself to us if you would like to do so.
Oh, okay, and thank you very much. First of all, let me apologize for not being there in person. I had a couple of long-standing commitments here in North Carolina. I've got a couple of people here from Southern Africa who are meeting with me on some problems there, and I had a whole series of situations I'm dealing with Dr. Maya Angelou, who I work with very closely. So I just couldn't get away this morning. But I've had a long-standing relationship with Florida A&M, which goes back to the early 60s, when I first met Coach Gaeta. And I hadn't been in business very long, and I started working with them and promoting the Florida A&M Classic, which was held in Miami at the time. And we worked with him for, it was 15, 20 years after that.
Are we?
The other thing that I'd like to say is that I think Florida A&M has unbelievable potential. I know Florida A&M has gone through a great deal of difficulty in the past few years, And we have, in many ways, tried to be helpful. But I know, too, that the potential is there. I have had some discussions over the last few years about the possibilities involved with Florida A&M and its education area. We have even talked to a number of people in South Africa, one of which is a man by the name of Maxwell Marcella, who heads the South African Wine Development Board, to try to bring some of his people and get some of Florida A&M's people together to look at the possibility of the grape growing and the making of wine, which they do very successfully in South Africa. But there have been a number of other contacts that we have made and things that we have done over the years with Florida A&M. Florida A&M has unlimited potential. It is, I think, it's really a diamond in the rough, which probably needs to be polished a great deal more. And I think it's essential, though, that what I believe Dr. Ammons will bring to the university is high vigilance in some areas like finance and student involvement, community relations, and academic excellence, and all of that. But even more than that, I believe that Florida A&M has the ability and needs to raise its profile and its positive profile, and deal with the fundraising and developing key relationships with funding groups and individuals, not only in Florida, but around the country and indeed around the world. And if you all are so obliged to, and if we become a member of the board of directors or trustees of Florida A&M, then one of the things that I would like to push for is some continued vigilance on all of these areas and lifting it up, particularly in the education field. We've been working very closely with Oprah Winfrey. I was there when she opened a school in Southern Africa in January. She happens to be one of my closest friends, and her boyfriend, Stedman Graham, worked with me for several years here in North Carolina. And we deal and talk about education all the time. I set up a foundation about 20 years ago where we send millions of books into Southern Africa. We have a warehouse and an office in Durban, South Africa. So education is very, very, very important to me in many ways. I've spent a lot of my own personal money in it, and I continue to spend a lot of my time in pushing education in every aspect of it.
Well, thank you for those kind remarks. Do members of the committee have any questions?
Speak up.
Hey.
Good morning, Mr. Brown. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I hear you a little better now.
Great. I'll just make sure that I kiss the mic so you can hear exactly what I'm saying. I wanted to first, I'm Ava Parker, and a member of the Board of Governors and a part of the Trustee Nominating Committee. And I want to thank you for your interest in serving on the Board of Trustees for Florida A&M University. And I've had an opportunity to review your application, and you've had obviously wonderful years of great service throughout the country. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is that in your application you indicate that you have a contract with Florida A&M University, and I want to turn to the page so I can see exactly how you provided the information. But I wanted to ask you about the extent of your services and what capacity did you serve I think it says, my company has a consulting agreement with the Office of Alumni Affairs and the FAMU Foundation. And I'm interested in when you started in that capacity, what services do you provide, and how long is the contractual relationship established to extend?
First of all, I thought it was important that be laid out up front. We have, at this juncture, we have no contractual relationship with Florida A&M University. What we did was we were working with the Office of Alumni Affairs. They were not significant contracts. We were called in to try to help review a number of situations with the Florida A&M Foundation and with the Alumni Affairs Office. They were contracts in which the people who run my business. There's a man by the name of Dr. Frankie Jones, who's a retired Air Force colonel who's been with me for about 15 years. And he made, along with several other members of my staff, made several trips down to Florida A&M. They had a whole staff of people working with the Alumni Affairs Office and with the Foundation Office, and I believe they were working with Mrs. Manning principally, and with the people in the Alumni Affairs Office, and with and Colonel Joe at the Foundation. The other part of what we worked on was at the end, I believe was earlier this year, they were working on a contract with Dr. Bryant to essentially review and develop a document, an end-of-term document relating to the ongoing challenges of Florida A&M in its growth and development, and some of the things that could be done, and making a comparative analysis of Florida A&M to other situations, and putting in the general data about enrollment in key major areas and faculty student admission and standardized testing scores and all that kind of thing. But we had some specialized people who were doing that. And both of them were, in the parlance of different contracts of this type, were very small contracts. I think over the last year and a half, I made maybe two trips to Florida A&M. The rest of the activities were conducted and carried on by people who run my business.
So, Mr. Brown, do I hear you say that the contract has been within the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year and a half.
And you indicated that folks from your staff were working on it. About how many people from your company did you have assigned to the contract?
Oh, maybe 3 people, I guess. 3 people, something like that. 3 or 4 people. I was not directly involved in it. That's why I'm somewhat vague. I was not directly involved in the day-to-day activities of it. But it's all laid out, and all the information is there. All of what we did is there. And as I said before, they were very small contracts in the neighborhood of, I believe, $25,000, $30,000 or something like that. It wasn't significant.
Mr. Brown, what services do you provide with your company?
I didn't hear that question.
What services do you provide with your company? Did you hear the question, Mr. Brown?
No, go ahead, tell me again.
What type of services do you provide with your company?
Oh, what type of services?
Yes, sir.
We provide all kinds of consulting services. We represent a lot of major companies all over the world. We've been in business about 47 years. We represent companies like Nissan. We've done a lot of work for General Motors, Rooms to Go, Sara Lee and Sara Lee entities all across the world. We've done work for many governments, including the United States government and governments in Africa and in Europe. We have relationships in different places, but it's consulting work, it's sometimes crisis management work, business development, in many instances, that sort of thing. I started the company, and I founded the company at the end of 1960.
Thank you very much. I have just one final question, Mr. Brown, and thank you for your patience with the microphone.
No problem.
You indicated that you have served on several different boards at different universities and colleges.
Yes, sir.
I'm unclear from the application which ones you currently serve on. So can you tell me what board service as it relates to a college or university that you currently have?
Well, I currently serve on High Point University's board here in High Point, where I live. And I also serve on Virginia Union University's board in Richmond, where I spent my first year of college. And I serve on the board of overseers at Boston University. I was on Boston University's trustee board for about 22 years, and decided to get off, and then they recruited me back to the board of overseers, which doesn't have as much of responsibility as the board of trustees.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown.
Okay, Gus?
Mr. Brown, my name is Stavros, Gus Stavros. I'm a member of the Board of Governors and a member of this nominating committee. I just would like to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. Number one, you list a friend of mine by the name of Wayne Huizenga as one of your references. Could you tell me a little bit of how you work with Wayne?
Yeah. Wayne and Marty are very close friends. When I first met Wayne, I'm a member of a board of directors and the executive committee of a group called the Horatio Association of America. You may or may not have heard about that group. We brought Wayne in as a member of that group a number of years ago, and that's how I initially met Wayne. And then Wayne had started a company called Republic Industries, and he recruited me to become a member of his board at Republic Industries. And then I started doing a lot of work for Republic Industries, and then we started buying a lot of other companies. But that's how I got involved with Wayne.
All right. Well, sir, let me say this, that you have a very strong bio here, and I'm impressed with all of your activities. In one of the questions, 29, you answered by saying that you found that it's essential for the board to maintain a high amount of vigilance in a number of key areas, and you mentioned finance, student involvement, community, academic excellence, etc. As a member of the board and your administration, your administrative ability, are you prepared, knowing that there have been some problems at A&M past number of years, are you prepared to be strong and call it as it is, and if there's a good old boys network, to be a member of the board and straighten it out?
I would not be, and I would not be true to myself, nor to the board of governors there, or what I have been about over these years that I've been on this earth, if I wouldn't call it. And everybody who knows me knows that that I will call it like it is. I have gone through any number of kind of situations with memberships on a lot of different boards and so forth, both university boards and corporate boards of critical situations. So I know a little bit about how to identify it and how to go right at it.
Well, you know, you're a very active individual. How about your time commitments? It's going to take a lot of effort and time. I think everybody on the Board of Governors here put a lot of time into the university system. You'll be working on the Board of Trustees of one of the universities, a very important university. Your time commitment, do you have the time to give? You're an awfully active individual, so tell us about your time commitment.
Well, I have a little bit more time than I had last year, a year before, some other. I've just retired from several boards that I was been involved with. One of them being Sunoco Products, which is the major packaging company around the world. Another is Wachovia Corporation, which I served on for many years, and I've just retired from that board. And you know, I've taken, I've cut back on a lot of boards and organizations that I've been involved with. So I have the flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Chairman Roberts?
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Good morning.
If I have repeated something someone's asked, please forgive me and just tell me. I stepped out of the room for one moment. First of all, thank you for applying. We have a very impressive group of individuals applying, and I thank you very much. I know that you said about your time commitment, and we appreciate that. And I might go one step further. You are available and will travel to Tallahassee for as many meetings.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever served on an audit committee? And did someone ask that?
No, nobody asked that, but I've probably served on too many audit committees. I've served on a lot of audit committees, in many of them in critical situations.
Well, absolutely. I think that's very important, and that we have someone who's comfortable with the audit committee, because as we all know, that when you have an audit committee, you have to make decisions and recommendations that are not always popular. And I speak for the board when saying we believe FAMU is one of the treasures of our system and of this nation. So we are all committed to having a strong board and making FAMU the great university it should be, not only for the citizens, but especially for the students who are counting on us. And I heard you say you're prepared to make tough decisions and sometimes unpopular decisions. So thank you very much for your application.
You're welcome, and I'd like to reassure you that my decisions not only would be tough, but they would be unbiased, you know, and let the chips fall where they may.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, this is Charlie Edwards. Again, we're approaching the end of our scheduled time. What I would like to do, I'm sorry, Sheila?
Mr. Brown, my name is Sheila McDevitt, member of this committee and the board. I just noticed I had noticed on your application that you were a member of the Board of Governors of the North Carolina system, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to elaborate on your understanding of the relationship of that board or our board to the boards of trustees and how they can work together effectively.
Well, I know how I served on the Board of Governors of the University System in North Carolina for a number of years, and I know how we worked it, and my understanding of it and how we worked it was, they were able to develop all kinds of programs and initiatives and everything else, but for major funding, for for all of the major aspects of that particular university or a particular university in North Carolina. It has to come to the Board of Governors for final approval. And in many instances, I think we developed a system which still, I think, exists here in North Carolina, and we've been fairly successful with it, where we would visit, the Board of Governors would visit various universities all the time. There would be various committees going out. There would be people interfacing. There would be both the Board of Governors members and staff visiting these universities and interfacing from time to time with various trustees and having trustee meetings with Board of Governors members present and with Board of Governors if any of the trustees wanted to interface with the Board of Governors, they would call our university president and work that out, and we would meet. And then we would go in at various times to look at different situations, even if there was something that was on the horizon, or if there was a crisis situation. We would go in and spend 2 or 3 days there and look at it and interface with the people, both the people at the university and people in the community, to find out exactly what the situation was and what was going on. So the Board of Governors here, when I served on it, was a fairly active Board of Governors.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Martin, do you have Governor Martin?
Yes, Mr. Brown, my name is Frank Martin, member of the Board of Governors. I'm not on the committee, but I'm here today because I'm very interested in the university and this appointment. When I look at your background, I noticed that you attended Virginia Union and North Carolina A&T University.
That's right.
Did you complete either one of those universities?
No, I did not.
Okay.
And I've said that in the application.
Right. My question to you, sir, is based on some of the critics that may say, as a part of the selection process, that we are selecting someone who has not completed a degree from any university. However, when I look at your background, I notice you have a number of honorary degrees, which is very, very commendable. So my question to you is, what do you say to the critics that if we make an appointment and you serve on the board, the fact that you do not have a college degree?
Well, I think that's a judgment call that the Board of Governors has to make. I think my experience and I think based on what I've been involved in, and I worked at the highest levels of government. I've helped to run the United States of America. I've helped to run some of the largest corporations in the world. I've advised various countries and people, including Nelson Mandela and others across the world on various kinds of key issues, and I continue to do that today. I think I think that serves for something, and I'm not proud of the fact that I don't have a college degree. I'm not bragging about it, but it just so happened that I don't have one, and I didn't have one because, and I don't want to go into the reasons why and how and so forth, but my work thing started at the end of my 2 years of college, and I started as a police officer and worked and got involved as a federal agent and was extremely successful there. And then after that, I started my own business, and I went back to college for a brief time to get my degree because that's what my wife and my grandmother wanted me to do. But I couldn't maintain it because I got too busily involved in business and a lot of other things, and so that took me into the political world. I worked with a lot of political campaigns, including Bobby Kennedy's campaign and Nixon's campaign, and a lot of other campaigns. Raised a lot of money for a lot of people, and ran a lot of campaigns. Not a lot, but several campaigns in different countries for various people who were running for presidents of those countries. So
Okay,
and I think that if I'm qualified to serve on the board of directors of some of the largest corporations in the world and some of the largest universities in the world, I think that in my experience over the last 40-some years, I think that qualifies me fairly well for whatever that might come before me at this time.
Thank you.
that was an excellent answer, Mr. Brown. We're past our allocated time. Is there anybody else that has a question they have to ask?
I'd just like to make one comment. I'd like to say that there are many great Americans that are self-educated, and I salute you for all your accomplishments, Mr. Brown.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Brown, thank you very much for taking the time, first to apply, and secondly for being with us today. You're more than welcome to stay on the phone if you'd like to listen to the rest of the interviews. It's going to be several more hours. But thank you very much for your time and for your interest in Florida A&M.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sorry again that I couldn't be there in person with you this morning.
We understand.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, our honorable committee, our staff rather, has advised me that I forgot to do the number one order of business, which was to approve the minutes of our June 13th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Okay, now our next candidate, and for our candidates, there are several options. Well, you could stand at the podium if you would like to do so, or you could actually come and sit at the table. I think my preference would be you come and sit at the table with us, but if you're more comfortable at the podium, that's okay also. Our next candidate is Belinda Shannon, who is a corporate attorney from North Carolina. Belinda has her regular degree and an MBA from Florida A&M with honors, I believe. She has her JD from Wayne State, has quite a background in business and as a corporate attorney. Belinda, if you followed our earlier remarks, we'd like for you to take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. First of all, I appreciate you inviting me here to speak with you today and considering me for the Board of Trustees. I grew up in a small steel mill town in western Pennsylvania called Sharon, Pennsylvania, about 60 miles north of Pittsburgh. And in 1978, on a very cold and snowy day in April, I got a phone call from Dr. Sybil C. Mobley telling me about a wonderful business school that she had down in Florida. And it didn't take a whole lot to persuade me to travel down here sight unseen to Tallahassee and begin my undergraduate education. I matriculated through Florida A&M University for 5 years, during that time earning a Bachelor's of Science in Marketing and an MBA. I believe I was one of the first 2 or 3 MBA classes that graduated from Florida A&M University. I think the time that I spent there during those very formative years as an adult were very impactful based on the faculty that I came in contact with, based on the education that I received, the experiences I received, and the influence that so many positive individuals had over my life. I left Florida A&M University fully equipped to build a very successful corporate career, and so I began doing that immediately, working for some major organizations, first General Motors, then Electronic Data Systems. Once I began my business career, I had a very good idea of the role that I would like to play in a corporate environment, and that was as an advisor. So at that time, I made the decision to discontinue my corporate experience and attend law school. And so I attended law school at Wayne State University, my first 2 years working during the day and attending school at night, determining that a legal career was definitely more to my liking. And so I basically liquidated my life at that point, sold my house, everything, and went to law school full time. It was one of the best decisions that I could ever make. Many of the skills that I learned at Florida A&M University, particularly the School of Business and its professional development program, has always assisted me in being very successful in any competitive roles that I've sought since leaving Florida A&M University. And I found that those skills carried over very well to my legal career. So upon graduating from Wayne State University in 1991, I immediately began working for one of the major law firms in the state of Michigan, learning to become an attorney for 4 years. I made the decision to leave the law firm in 1994 after the birth of my second child, and I moved to Washington, D.C. After staying home for about 9 months with my newborn, I basically contacted all of my contacts in Washington, D.C., which is not the easiest place for an attorney to find a job, and basically let them know I'm looking for employment because, again, I had gained so many valuable skills both during my time at Florida A&M University and my time working in corporate America and at the law firm. I was able to, within 2 months, have 2 opportunities presented to me, both at the U.S. Department of Labor. And so I spent about 22 months at the U.S. Department of Labor before one of my Florida A&M University friends in the vast network that we tend to have throughout the country called me and said, hey, there's a pharmaceutical company in North Carolina that's looking for someone with your background. And so 22 months into my time with the U.S. Department of Labor, I sent my resume to GlaxoSmithKline, was invited down for an interview, was hired. That was 10 years ago. During the 10 years that I've been with GlaxoSmithKline, I've had an opportunity to advise the most senior executives of the corporation, which GlaxoSmithKline is the second largest pharmaceutical in the world. I've had an opportunity to sit around the table and advise regarding policies, processes, procedures, decisions, compliance, the whole 9 yards as it relates to our employment processes, employment situations. I spent the first 10 years with GlaxoSmithKline as that employment advice and counsel. And last November, I was given an opportunity to be promoted to the position of vice president in the legal function. And upon taking that position, I took on all management of all of the employment litigation in the United States. And in addition to that, I was given a position on the highest level legal management team for the global legal department as chair of the Global Diversity Committee. Now, I've given you a summary of my professional background. Oh, and as a very late update, I was just offered 2 weeks ago a position on the business side of GlaxoSmithKline as the vice president of all of the U.S. employee relations, compliance, diversity, and EEO and affirmative action. And so I've accepted that position and will be moving from the legal department to the business side very soon. In addition to my professional career, though, personally, I've maintained a lot of high-level activity in organizations that supported young people, organizations that supported diversity in my profession. My husband and I established several years ago a nonprofit organization that's designed to introduce, prepare, and expose young people from middle school through high school to those opportunities and development that will help them to successfully enter college and successfully matriculate through college. One of the major functions that our organization has engaged in is taking, since 1992, approximately every year, 40-plus students on college tours. In fact, we've visited Florida A&M University over 6 times during that time frame. And I was counting up the other day, and there's at least a dozen students on the campus today that my husband and I personally recruited. And so, you know, we've also, I'm a charter member of a number of philanthropic organizations. And so the whole concept of volunteering, giving back for a worthy cause is something that has always been a part of my life, in addition to my career success.
Very, very impressive background. Do we have questions from the board? Chairman Roberts?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for traveling here, and you have a very impressive application.
Thank you.
Would you tell me your experience with audit, if you've had experience on audit committees or with any audits?
Yeah. I've had several experiences during my time at GlaxoSmithKline with audit. We do have an internal audit function. And so on both of those instances that I've been directly involved with audit, I've actually been the attorney that has requested the audit. And in these cases, it would have been the audit over our employment systems to ensure that we are adequately managing the risk. There are certain issues that the corporation maintains on what we call a risk map. And so the audit function periodically will review those areas of the business to ensure that we have the proper systems in place to effectively manage that risk. And so as the attorney, I basically assisted the audit team in setting forth the scope of the audit, and then throughout the audit, as the team worked with the business, translation many times had to occur between the audit team and the business around what the scope was, what the purpose was to keep us on track. I would review preliminary findings and then review the final findings, and then actually issue under attorney-client privilege the findings of the audit. And so I've had some, in both of those experiences, one happened in, I believe, 1999, and the other just recently in 2000. In fact, I'm a member of the team that is charged with carrying forth all the remedial measures that were suggested as a result of our last audit over our EEO and discrimination risk.
One follow-up, Chairman Edwards. In any setting, you understand we work totally in the sunshine, and that's very good for our citizens. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to make difficult decisions or be critical of areas in public. Do you feel that you're familiar with our sunshine law in our state?
Yes.
Do you feel that you're prepared to make difficult positions, even if they're not popular to your other board members or to the people in the organization, in this case being FAMU that you are dealing with? I mean, with your experience, I'm sure you've had uncomfortable situations, but when you're working in the sunshine, sometimes it gets very uncomfortable. I can certainly attest to that.
Right, I understand, and I think that's a great question and very relevant. It is very much a part of what I do professionally, of asking the right questions, asking the hard questions, taking the difficult positions. I mean, I am a senior executive who advises on employment matters, which many times can be very, very emotional and have nothing to do with either what's the right thing to do or what's the legal thing to do. And so many, many times I have had to have those discussions, even when I know the emotions of the parties involved wanted another result.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys?
Shannon, my name is Stavros Gustavus. I'm a member of the board of governors and a member of this committee. I'm impressed with your resume and your past and what you've done and what you've accomplished. I'm familiar with Florida A&M Pride. We've been in Florida almost 50 years, and my family and I never missed the opportunity to see the A&M band strut and play. And you could sense the pride that they had in their university. However, many universities, like many businesses, have problems. My alma mater, Columbia, New York City, in the 60s, the students rebelled and took over the office of the president. We were not happy the way the trustees or the administration solved that problem. They didn't know what to do. Are you prepared, if you see a conflict of interest as a member of the board, if you see something that is wrong, to just come out and make it known and stress your opinion and call it as it is?
I think I am. Actually, I think because of my profession, have really built up a very strong sensitivity to conflicts of interest. In fact, that used to be part of my responsibilities, to review conflicts of interest as they were voluntarily brought to my attention, and as sometimes involuntarily brought to my attention. It was just something that I had to raise within the company. And so I'm very familiar with that. I think the legacy of pride at Florida A&M University that you spoke of is very important. It's very important to me. I have a daughter who's ready to graduate from Florida A&M as a third generation Rattler on my husband's side. And so, you know, I have invested a lot in the university. We have had a number of past faculty, administrators, and alumni who have invested in the university and made it, in fact, what it is today. I think that we need to do whatever is necessary to get the administrative concerns under control and to get the university back in touch with the proud legacy that it has. And it's worth it. I'm not afraid to speak up. You know, if you talk to the people that I have worked with closely over the years, even in a major corporation, they will tell you that I'm very direct. I'm not afraid to have the hard conversations.
Thank you.
I'm Eva Parker. I'm a member of the Board of Governors and also a member of the nominating committee. And I want to thank you very much for your application and for coming down and meeting with us this morning. I noticed from your application that you actually have a daughter who's a student at Florida A&M right now. And I'm interested in the kinds of things she's telling you about what's happening and how she feels about what's happening, and your view on those things, I guess, as particularly if you had an opportunity to serve. I know that for anyone who lives in Tallahassee, it seems that the university has been in the newspaper every day for the last 3 weeks. So I'm interested as the kind of conversations that your daughter has with you as a student who's kind of going through that process, and then how, I guess, your reflection on that and how that may impact your service as a member of the board.
Okay, first let me talk about her, some of her comments, some of her experiences, some of my experiences as a parent. Her entry to Florida A&M University was not the best of circumstances. She entered in the fall of 2003 when the housing situation for the freshman girls was just a shambles. You know, and for me, I had quite an emotional reaction because here I was bringing my daughter 25 years after I had matriculated at the university, or 25 years after I had started, signing her into, wanting and excited about the prospect of signing her into the same dormitory that I had lived in 25 years ago. In fact, she was assigned one room over from mine. And we arrived there to find that the dormitories were uninhabitable. And I found that unacceptable. We worked with the housing office over the next day and a half to cancel our contracts. I was appalled that they were, you know, putting students even in what I thought was uninhabitable premises. And so that was a very disturbing situation, one that made some parents turn away from Tallahassee and go enroll their students otherwise. Instead of running away from the problem, though, my husband and I resolved to stay involved with the university, talk to the administrators. In fact, we spent an extra day in Tallahassee making sure we had those conversations to let them know that this was unacceptable. This was a betrayal of the strong legacy that the university had built up, and that we needed to do whatever necessary to correct the situation, which I understand was corrected within the next year. After that, I saw my daughter grow in the way that I had expected her to grow, being in that environment as a young adult. She matriculated through the ROTC program, which was her choice, her dream, her goal as a third generation ROTC cadet. She really did well in the program. She came to love the university in the same way that her father and I loved it, in the same way that her grandparents had loved it when they matriculated through there in the 1950s. During that time, there were times where she would explain to me her situation or her encounters with trying to straighten out her administrative issues with the administration, with either financial aid, with the housing office, with this, and there was a somewhat mediocre sense of customer service that was displayed to her, that would be displayed to my husband and I when we would get on the phone to make something happen. And so I, again, don't run away from problems. I get in there, roll up my sleeves, and see what we can do to fix the situation. Those are some of the pieces of the university that I think need to really be looked at. I think the standards need to be raised. I think the bar needs to be raised, and we need to enforce that, and that there are a number of talented individuals in the Tallahassee area and the state of Florida that can reach that higher bar, and that's what we should be setting. That's how it has affected me. I'm aware of where some of those problems are very intimately, but I think that you don't run away from problems, you roll up your sleeves and you get in there, you set the bar high, and you find the people who can reach that bar.
Thank you. Can I ask one question?
One different question. I noticed from your application that you had, I guess, several different types or involvement in several different types of committees and volunteer organization. Can you tell me a little bit about your board service? And I guess in any capacity, I couldn't tell from the application
Yes.
what types of boards you've had an opportunity to serve on.
Yeah, I haven't had very much board experience, I will tell you. I have had board training. In 2000, GlaxoSmithKline sponsored me as a member of the United Way's leadership class, where I did receive board training. And after that board training, I took a committee position with the YWCA of the Triangle, where I worked on their personnel committee for several years. The other board work that I've done has just been as unofficial founding member of a couple of philanthropic organizations and making decisions and managing those organizations in the way that a board would manage them.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mrs. Shannon, if you were on the Board of Trustees, could you explain to us what you believe your relationship with the President should be, or the Board of Trustees' relationship with the President should be?
I think first and foremost that the Board of Trustees and the President should have a mutual agreement to treat each other with dignity and respect in carrying out the mission of the board, the mission of the university, and that we should be able to talk directly about issues concerning the university without respect to personal feelings about certain circumstances. Yes, opinions can be expressed, but I think that there needs to be an air of mutual respect. I think that there needs to be a determination to address any and all issues that come before the board, or that the board needs the university president to respond to. But we are partners in delivering the promise of a high-quality education to those students and parents who invest in Florida A&M University. And I think we need to proceed as such.
Okay, are there any other questions, Frank?
Ms. Shannon, could you speak to your current role as a senior advisor and attorney for your pharmaceutical company, being the second largest pharmaceutical company in, you said, the world?
Yes.
What's the employment size, and
Okay.
how many attorneys are within the work for you?
Stateside, U.S. employees, GlaxoSmithKline has approximately 25,000. Globally, we have 125,000. Our headquarters are located in London, England. In the United States, we have two dual headquarters, Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As of today, my current role is to manage all of our employment litigation. And in that, any time formal legal action is brought against the company based on employment practices, I am the attorney that actually manages that, hires outside counsel, consultants, what have you, to protect the company's interests. In addition to that, I also am chair of the Global Diversity Committee. We have very strong diversity initiative articulated throughout the company and articulated in our legal department and in the legal profession. And so I am the chair of that committee, and I have a number of committee members, a number of subcommittees, and I'm responsible for driving our progress in that area. Additionally, I remained as advisor and counsel to the senior executives on complex employment actions, complex decisions, or major impactful policies.
Thank you.
Any, Sheila?
My name is Sheila McDevitt, and I can identify quite a bit with your professional experience, having just retired a week ago as the general counsel of a company much smaller than yours, but I too began the diversity initiative and drove it and so on, so I can appreciate quite often it's like herding cats or pushing rope. And
yeah, and even more so when you have a client across the pond
That's
that
correct.
is not in the same place of diversity as
That's
the U.S.
correct. I just want to ask you a couple of things. First, what caused you to want to apply for this position?
I think for the most part, the feeling that I have professional skills to lend to the board, and you know, to break it down, I will tell you, if I said to myself, if I can advise senior executives of a multi-billion dollar corporation, global corporation, on issues of policy, governance, financial accountability, then I should be able to offer the same to my alma mater and give back in that way. And so I think that that's the foundation of wanting to serve. I've always been involved with the university from the time that I left. I've been active in alumni organizations. I've actively recruited students here. I've sent my own dollars down here, you know, to support my daughter's matriculation. And this is, you know, at this point in my career, in my life, I am no longer as much in a career building mode as I am in a legacy building mode. And I think this is one of the most impactful ways that I can attempt to build a legacy.
Can you describe your perception of the relationship between the Board of Trustees and this board?
I don't have very much information whatsoever about the nature of that relationship. Are you talking formally, or are you talking?
No, just how you think they should interact, relate, and move forward together.
Well, I think the Board of Governors has the oversight to ensure that the educational institutions in the state of Florida are operating first and foremost according to the statutes and are operating in the best interests of the constituents of the state of Florida and of the parents and students that attend these universities and for whom we promised a quality education. And I think that the Board of Trustees must ensure that it fulfills and is accountable to the Board of Governors to ensure that it fulfills its responsibilities in oversight of that university, and that it conduct itself at all times in the best interest of the university, but that it is in fact accountable to the Board of Governors.
You don't, I just want to clarify, you would have otherwise disclosed it, but you don't have any relatives currently employed at the university, do you?
No.
Okay, Mrs. Shannon, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us, for traveling to get here. You certainly have a very impressive resume, and that was a very impressive interview, and this committee and this board has a very difficult task before the day is finished. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Our next candidate comes to us all the way from Boston, Mr. Carl White. Mr. White is in the asset management business. He is a graduate of Florida A&M. He has a master's in business from the University of Chicago, and he serves on the University of Massachusetts Board of Trustees. I found it very interesting in talking with him briefly before the meeting today. Carolyn and I, many years ago, were on the committee that hired John Lombardi as president of the University of Florida, and Carl was on the committee that hired John Lombardi as president of Massachusetts Amherst, which was an interesting event. He's also served as vice chairman of the board of the University of Massachusetts and several terms as chairman of their audit committee. Carl, procedurally, we would like to give you an opportunity for a couple of minutes to explain who you are and what you are and why you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you. By way of background, I am a K through 16 product of Florida system of public education, having attended school in Monticello, Florida, and then being a third generation FAMU graduate. I graduated from the College of Pharmacy in 1988. I later went on and got an MBA from the University of Chicago in Analytic Finance and Statistics in 1995. For the last 12 years, I have held a variety of investment management positions. Currently, I'm Chief Investment Officer at Fletcher Asset Management, which is a hedge fund based in New York. Previously, I served 4 years as CEO and Chief Investment Officer for an approximately $2 billion